Welcome to the Ellen at Blackfilm videocast, where you can find the latest on Blackfilm news, exclusives, and reviews. I'm joined by my co-host, Hakeem Graham.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in.
Well, great. Our next review is for the film, and this is a special one for me because it was a difficult one to watch at first, but I like it all day and a night. This film premiered on Netflix on May 1st, written and directed by Black Panther co-writer Joe Robert Cole, starring Ashton Sanders, Jeffrey Wright, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Regina Taylor, and of course a score of other great actors. This show is about a young man who is a rapper, but he gets caught up in an Oakland daily life. It's a gangster movie, but a gangster story about struggle in the urban neighborhoods. The man Jeffrey Wright plays is a father of a son who has a son. And the legacy that they all want to do is, want to change is this road to prison. They get into drugs, they get into violence, they get into pretty much treating themselves, disrespecting each other. And it's interesting because I read a review by Robert Ebert, and I thought it would be interesting to share because it'll actually lend some credence to what I'm going to say. And I quote, there is not a single original idea in All Day and a Night. Not one solitary surprise to be had here. You don't even need to watch it, and I bet you'll have guessed at least 95% of what happens based on the plot description and your knowledge of other movies by Robert Ebert. This is kind of what I've referenced in before, two reviews before. We need to hear our story. We need to show our story, and the reason why is so we don't repeat it. It's one quote that I used to say to all the time is, if you forget your past, you're doomed to repeat it. And I think, every generation we need to remind them. And this kind of aligns with this story because every generation sort of forgot, because Ashton's, Jeffrey Wright's character goes to jail, which is the father of Ashton, and Ashton goes to jail. Well, he meets his father in jail, and they're taking each other. And then they show the flashbacks of Ashton with TQ, his partner in crime, and they go through this flashback of all the events that led up to him going to jail and how his father went to jail and became addicted to drugs and what have you. It is a sad story, but it's a reality story. I think we need to get more of these stories out as examples of what not to do or examples of how we can stop what's going on. Entertaining for me? Absolutely. Is it told from a place where I don't know? Not absolutely. Have I heard stories like this? Yes, but not in this way. And I'll tell you why. I'm an East Coast guy. There are people like from the South. There are people from the Southwest. There are people from the Northwest. And there's people from Oakland and California, LA, and those particular places, San Diego. They're different stories. There's different pathways. And I think that's the reason why I disagree with Robert Ebert, because he doesn't know those stories. He just knows what he saw in a movie.
Right.
Boys in the Hood. Well, we all seen Boys in the Hood, but we've lived it.
Right.
You have. And see, I think that's the point we need to bring across.
So I read that same review, and I got so much in my feelings.
Did you hear me?
Yo, I almost looked up this man's address from I don't know where.
Do a drive-by.
So I can send him some hate mail.
I'm just kidding. Do a drive-by, homie.
Right? But you bring up a good point. These are not his experiences. He knows nothing of this world, so it's hard for him to connect to it outside of being a film critic, right?
Right.
So while I respect that point of view, it lacks substance in the sense of like you're not really appreciating this piece of art for what it is because you have no concept of what it is.
No context.
No context and no concept of what it is.
No.
So going into this, because you and I rapped about this a couple of weeks ago, and we went kind of
Yes.
back and forth on why we're either going to watch it or we're not going to watch it. And I struggled with that, just, you know, knowing the level of violence that was going to be involved. And then
Right.
I kind of prejudged it and thinking like, all right, we've seen similar plot details in other movies, so what's really going to set this apart? So then I watch it, and oh my God, I loved it. I thought it was shot beautifully. I thought it was well written.
Yes.
I thought the director slash writer did a really good job painting, or right, the background is very gritty. I think he did a good job putting a pretty filter cinematically on a really gritty in dark situation. Because there were points in the movie where, for example, when Ja, the main character, is riding his bike to his girlfriend's house, and then the neighborhood kids kind of follow him, and so this music is playing in the background, the scene is a little slowed down, and you forget that there's this craziness going on in his life, right? It's kind of like this calm before the storm, because he was about to go get lit with his girl.
I think the director did that on purpose, and it's interesting you say the lighting as well. They were shot dark. That scene, I'm imagining him struggling putting that scene in there because of what it meant. But it was apropos.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
And another scene that stood out to me was when Ja, TQ, Shantae, Ja's girlfriend, are at Big Stunna's party, and they are walking through the block party outside, and everyone's dancing, cars are popping, like the scene looks amazing, but then you don't realize what's about to happen, right? So I think he did yet another good job at making it seem one way, only for the setup to just kind of knock the wind out of you because you're not expecting it. So I say all that to say the movie kept me on my toes. I was interested the entire time. I struggled for a hot couple of seconds connecting with Ja's character because it took so long to figure out what his motivation was. But once I figured out what it was, I loved it even more because it was so unexpected. I had my own theories. They were horribly wrong. But once it was revealed, and that's why the movie is 2 hours, right? Because it's a slow burn. It's telling you a story from different periods in his life, 3 periods in particular. So you really got to pay attention because there's a lot of flashbacks.
Right, there's a lot of flashbacks. Addition to that is, I can imagine that a lot of things hit the editing floor because, like you said, it took you a minute, and I get that to get into Ja's character, and that would be the case. But we have to remember that they shoot a whole lot of things, and then when they go to editing, they have to cut so much out because it's just expensive and people's attention span. That's very true. And eventually they get to the point where you can kind of tie it together. So you do have to have a little bit of patience with it. The story itself, and particularly the last scene you spoke of, it's interesting that you brought that up because that scene right there, I was clueless about. We don't have that on the East Coast. That doesn't happen. I mean, that would never happen. Even in Baltimore, that doesn't happen. So it's really different. Even in Philly, I remember when I was younger, we used to go to Philly, and people used to like summertime, like Will Smith used to rap about the song "Summertime." That's a true story. That's a true story. People get shiny. They clean their cars. They get their haircuts. They get their fly gear just so they can pretty much drive down the street and watch the girls look at them or try to kick it. They sort of do it a little different, and that was interesting for me to see. So again, I learned something from that perspective because that's something that I wouldn't know. Again, the difference between Oakland, LA, San Diego, St. Louis, North Carolina, South Carolina, there's totally different things. So you have to remember that, and that's why I kind of I don't agree with Robert E. But that's the kind of difference that if you don't have that contextual difference, that's what the things you miss in this film.
Yeah, I think prolonging Ja's motivation was intentional because I think he wanted the audience to just kind of be as tuned in as to why he did it as the people in the film were. And what I realized in retrospect is Ja only revealed to the audience what his motivation was. He never revealed it within the movie, which I thought was dope. And my last point is There was a scene where when Jai is in prison and he's sitting by the garden, he has his back to the garden, and the flowers of the plants are just kind of blowing in the wind. And that was such a poetic scene because I forgot for a minute that he was in prison, right? Because it was just that beautiful. But then that scene also connects to the end scene of the movie.
I was gonna say, I was like, okay.
And I thought it was beautiful the way the director, you know, did that. There were a lot of things to pick up. I watched it twice just because it was so long and it was just so many different things going on that it was worth kind of going back to because I got curious.
I thought the same thing. I thought that it was a lot to go back to. I thought that there was clever things that the director did that made you think. And it's interesting that it took you a while to get into it, but it still drew you in. And I think that's what he was going for. I think the stuff that he probably cut off, that's the direction he went in to editing the final edition of this movie. That's what he was going for. To pull you in, just keep you on suspense a little bit, and then pull you in and tie it together at the end. And it really does tie itself at the end. I think it comes full circle, which is an interesting story. It is not like Boys in the Hood, so please don't say that. Right. It is. There's some ingredients of that, but that's the lifestyle in that particular area, and I think that was brought across by the director and the writer, and the actors too. Yeah.
I just want to go back to something that you said. It didn't take me long to get into it. It took me long to connect with Josh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was into the movie, but it was something about Josh's character that I kept asking myself, all right, like, why did you do it? What happened? What's going on? And then, oh, crap. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah, connecting to his character. Because he was sort of very silent. Yeah. But the weird part about it is he was so silent. But if you listen to the rhymes, because it played in the background, I don't even know if everybody's going to catch that. He was dropping signs. It was like a Tupac thing.
He was. He
was dropping lines.
And his voice, I love that he narrated parts of the film. His voice, for his stature, he's this skinny, scrawny kid, but his voice is that it reminds me of James Earl Jones. That sort of strength and presence.
Resonance, yeah, yeah. Tupac had the same thing. Tupac doubled up his voice, put a flange on it, and his voice was different. His voice was never that deep. I mean, it was sort of like mine, except, you know, he was more gritty. Again, one of those things where it mellowed the film. It sort of tied the film together. And I think watching this, I could actually watch it again. I'm with you. I could watch it again. I don't think I can watch it with anybody else, but I think I can watch this alone again. And this time I'll probably have a drink and some popcorn because I'm serious. I really like the film.
I thought Yahya Abdul-Mateen did such a good job. I am so impressed by him. Let me tell you, I could see an Oscar for him down the line. That's how good I think he is. And I mean, and Ashton Sanders, he's incredible. I didn't even know. I had no clue. So now I want to go back and watch the movies that he's done, specifically Native Son.
Native Son, Equalizer 2, Moonlight, Straight Outta Compton.
Right. Yeah, I see.
I think Straight Outta Compton kind of preempted so that he can do this film. So, you know, people don't sleep on him.
No,
and of course,
not.
Jeffrey Wright, my God.
Oh, gosh. Oh my Lord.
Let me just go down the line just really quickly. Jeffrey Wright. I'm not going to name them all. Just a couple, just to give you context. Shaft, Westworld, OG, She's Gotta Have It series, Hunger Games, Boardwalk Empire, Cadillac Records, Quantum Solace, Quantum Solace, Casino Royale, Manchurian Candidate, Ali, Hamlet. Jeffrey Wright's a beast, and this is just some of them. This is not even all of them. And for his small, I mean, it wasn't even. He didn't take up a lot of the screen time, but man, very impactful. And I like Jeffrey Wright. I've said that to you before.
Yes.
Jeffrey Wright.
There's so much to unpack with this movie that this is not nearly nowhere enough time to do it, just because it appeals to, you know, so many different areas that are worth in-depth conversation. But all in all, I love this movie. I highly recommend you to watch it all day and night on Netflix. It's a little over 2 hours long, but I promise you that it's worth every minute.
Watch it two times.
Yeah, you
That's
might
my
you might have to watch it 2 times just
that was
because.
my Mark Blackman impersonation. Two times, two times.
So, on a 5-star rating scale, what do you give this?
I will give this actually a 4, and I'll tell you why I give it a 4. I give it a 4 because of what you said. Connecting to Ja's character was a bit of a challenge, and I get that. Um, I would have gave it a 5 had it been a little bit more concise, but that I don't think that's faulting it. I think a 4 is
Yeah.
still a maximum score to give it. It still is a great story. I'm not apologizing for it. I would recommend this to everybody watching. If you don't have Netflix, borrow somebody's or get your own, because this is definitely a good film to watch. I would suggest if you are queasy to kind of take that in consideration because there are some really
Yeah.
really violent parts in there. But it's needed. It wasn't overly violent. It was just violent. And but you needed to see that because you needed to understand where the frame of mind of Ja was, the frame of mind where Jeffrey Wright was, and the other characters, TQ, and you get that from the violent part. What would you give it, Ellen? How would you rate it?
I would give it a 4.5.
Okay.
Just because I thought cinematically it was dope. The writing had purpose, and the motivation and the reveal was tight. The acting was on point. I mean, I walked into this judging it and not wanting to watch it. I walked away from it feeling very happy that I decided to watch this piece of art because I twice, right? And I really do think it's a piece of art just because of how it's shot, how it's written, and how it's acted. So I look forward to many more movies from this director.
Yes, and writer, because
And
remember,
right, because he did both.
Black Panther.
Yes.
Yes. So I would definitely say, and I can't wait to see anything else by Ashton Sanders to see where he goes because he has not disappointed yet. Moonlight. When I watched Moonlight, I was like, whoa. And I mean, whoa, in a way. If you haven't watched Moonlight, which I doubt that's the case, if you haven't watched Moonlight, where have you been under rock for like the last 5 to 6 years?
Yeah.
That was phenomenal. For me, that was like Will Smith's 7 Degrees of Separation or 6 Degrees of Separation because it was pivotal, right? And it was out of the blue. And I didn't think at that time, I didn't think Will Smith could act until I saw that movie. Ashton's like that.
Yeah.
And he
He's
raps.
special. He's something special.
And he raps. So
And he raps. And so I got curious and went to his IG just to see like what he was all about. And it's the complete opposite of what I thought he was going to be about, which made me love him even more.
even more. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also Christopher Meyer plays in this movie, and he played his best friend, the one that ended up in the wheelchair. I thought he did a good job. He had a small role, but it was impactful.
Right, because it showed the softer side of Jai's character. So yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, and it showed that he wanted something more than what he had been steered toward.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, that wraps up our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with us on this Thursday. We do this every Thursday at 7 p.m. on at Blackfilm Plus, and also on Tuesdays, Hawk and I get together on my IG, Ellen the Great, and we talk about TV and film that we've been watching while being socially distant. It's not specific to Black film, so it's a wide variety of shows and films that we watch. So tune in Tuesdays at 7. Any last words? Any questions or comments from our viewers now that we're at the tail end?
I think they
The play on words, yeah.
Well, play on words was great. I think some of the better things that we had going on here. Dre from Philly, he said class of '86. Will Smith, I think that means he was in the graduating class. Interesting enough.
And Basic Queen said Eastside Park. Yes, Patterson.
Yeah,
right?
Eastside Park. Yeah, exactly. Join us on Tuesdays as well. Bring your favorite drink and bring your movie suggestions or what you're watching during the quarantine. We would like to know.
Yep. That's a wrap, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Black Film Plus and Black Film. Don't forget to go to blackfilm.com and follow Ellen the Great at Ellen the Great on IG and Hawk Too Nice on IG as well.
All right,
Have a
real
go.
quickly, I'm going to answer somebody questions. When is the Twilight show coming back? The second season. CBS hasn't announced an exact date, but I'm sure that will come out pretty soon because they just announced the cast. So I think because season 1 ended in April last year, season 2 might be starting pretty soon, but we don't have a set date for that yet. What else? All right, that's it.
All right.
Deuces,
Deuces.
everybody. See you next Thursday.
Pac changed his name.